Hey guys, welcome back to Trellis and Trails Homestead. I'm Jacqueline. If you saw one of my latest videos, you will have seen that we built more of these raised garden beds for our garden this year, and we finally got around to finishing filling them with dirt and soil. Here we are just adding a couple of bags of soil to the top. I had most of it filled, but I just needed to top the beds off before I could plant in them. And I wanted to go ahead and do this pretty soon. This was a couple of weeks ago now, so that I could go ahead and put some cold weather plants out. I wanted to get my lettuces out and see how they would do. We are still having some cold temperatures. Actually, after this, we did have a decent snow. Otherwise, we've had some pretty mild spring temperatures. I have checked my lettuce since the snow that we had because I already had it planted in one of the garden beds. And it's actually fine. It didn't die or anything. I had grown them inside as little seedlings, some romaine, some kale, and like a salad bowl mix. And they were probably about 2 inches tall when I put them out in the garden bed. So I've never actually grown the lettuce inside before and then transplanted it outside. I've always just started the lettuce from seed, straight, direct sown into the garden bed. So I'm interested to see how this holds up and how they grow, and if that's something I should do in the future, or if it's easier just to go ahead and put it straight into the garden bed. So once we got our beds filled with the dirt and soil and everything we were going to put in there, we just went ahead and watered it all in. I like to water the layers in as I go. As I add something to the raised garden bed, I like to water in between. So this was just a water to the top of the topsoil, just to kind of finish these beds off. As you can see here, you can see here's the lettuce. I think these are the salad bowl mixes. I think maybe some kale too. So we are adding these into the bed. They are still in their little mesh outer coating for the peat pellets that I use. If you haven't seen my seed starting videos, I have several of those on my channel. Go check those out. You'll see how I plant in these and then how I remove them from the mesh before I transplant them into the ground. I'm sure there's probably mixed opinions on that. They do already have a pretty good root system, and so you can see roots at the bottom growing through the bottom of these mesh outer coatings. So I do remove those, and it probably disturbs the root a little bit, but I've never had a problem with the plants continuing to grow once I remove them. I've actually had more of a problem with leaving the mesh coating on because it seems like the roots don't expand as much as they would without it, just straight into the soil. And I've gone back into my garden beds at the end of the season, and I've found these mesh coatings that still haven't broken down and decomposed yet. So it seems like it takes a really long time for them to do that. So I just like to remove them and then just stick the plant with the rest of the soil that it was grown into as a little seedling straight into the ground, into the garden bed. And that usually does just fine. I have no problem with that. So I just compost these mesh coatings because they are compostable. Like I said, I just think it takes a really long time for them to break down. So I don't really like to leave them in my garden bed. So I planted out all of the lettuce seedlings that I had. I think I had 12 of them from inside. But I also went ahead and added in some seeds, just some more lettuce seeds directly into the garden bed. This is what I usually do. I usually just put the seeds direct sow them straight into the bed, and they grow just fine. So I sort of did this as a little bit of an experiment to see if they grow kind of similarly to the seedlings, or if I have better success with putting the seedlings into the garden bed first. So we'll kind of see how that goes. I haven't seen any sprouts from the seeds just yet. And like I said, this was, I think, about 2 weeks ago that I put all of these plants out, or the lettuce plants out. So I haven't seen any sprouts pop up from the seeds yet. I am not sure if it's just because we've had some colder temperatures and they've not had enough time to sprout or what, but we'll see. My lettuce seems to be doing okay, like I said, with the cooler temperatures. Some of them don't look great, but a couple of them are thriving. So I like to give it a couple more weeks of some of these milder temperatures that we're having, and we're supposed to get a lot of rain this weekend too. So I would like to see how they do after that. Since it is mid-April at this point and we are having some milder spring temperatures, I wanted to go ahead and plant out some radish seed as well. These seeds I saved from radish last year. So if you have radish in your garden and you don't harvest the radish when it's ready, if you just let it hang out on the plant, it'll actually create these radish pods, these seed pods. So it'll go to seed. Your radish itself will become really hard, really rooty in the ground. So that's not something you want to harvest later. Just leave it. Your leaves and the bush part of the radish plant will create these green pods. They almost look like a little bean or string bean of sort. And I leave those on the plant. I let them dry out for a few weeks or so. And then I take those off, open them up, and that's where the radish seed is stored. So I have this bag here of radish seeds that I harvested from the radish seed pods last year. I think most of these were champion radishes. I did have some cherry bell radishes planted, but I'm pretty sure these were from the champion radishes, the nice big ones. I really like that variety of radish. So I'm just replanting the seeds from last year. These have been dried and stored appropriately in a cool, dark place for the last year since last season. So they should grow just fine. And actually, from the future, a couple weeks later, they are growing really, really well. So I just looked at my garden beds yesterday, and I have lots of radish sprouting in the beds. I kind of just scattered them throughout, so some of them may be a little closer together than what they should be. But that's okay. I just wanted to see if they would actually grow from these seeds that I saved, and they are growing really, really well. So again, I'll give those another couple of weeks or so, and we'll probably have a mid-May, late May radish harvest for the first of the season, and so I'm really excited about that. Radish is something you can succession sow. You can continue to plant out radish so that you have some all season long. It is a bit of a cold weather crop, so it does better with cooler temperatures. I don't think that it'll bolt or anything with the warmer temperatures, but I've just found that it grows a lot better with cooler temperatures and kind of milder summers. My husband is washing my Bootstrap Farmer potting cups from last year. Actually, I think I had these the previous year too. I think this is my third year using these Bootstrap Farmer pots. This is the summer solstice variety. They partnered with Whispering Willow Farm. She's over on YouTube. You go check her out. And I ordered these pots, and they're some of my favorite pots to use. So we're just mixing up some potting mix that we have, and some dirt and some other things, just mixing that up with some water to go ahead and put in the pots so that I can up-pot my tomatoes and peppers. This is desperately needed, something that I really needed to do on this day because my tomato and pepper plants are getting quite large inside. So once we mixed up the potting soil, we just sprayed it down and mixed it all together so that we could just use this big bucket full of soil to easily fill the cups as we're up potting, just to make things more efficient and make it a little easier to just be able to grab dirt from this big bucket and then refill it as needed. So these are my tomato seedlings. This is not all of them. This is just some of them. As you can see, they are about 3 inches tall here, most of them. They look a little bit leggy, and they might be because my lights were kind of a little bit higher at times than probably they needed to be. But when they get to this stage, I just up-pot them and plant the stem and the roots pretty deep, so that I only leave out like 1/2 inch to 1 inch of plant at the top. And that way they have plenty of room to spread their legs and for their roots to expand in the cups. I have some clear solo cups here that we just drilled holes into the bottom of for adequate drainage, and we're filling these. I have red ones that I use sometimes too, but I like the clear ones because you can really see the roots throughout the cup. So if it's getting really root bound before I can plant them out, that's something I want to pay attention to. Because we have a short growing season here and I have to start my seedlings inside in March, they have a lot of time, a good 10, 12 weeks to grow inside before I can put them outside. So I run a high risk of my plants getting root bound if I don't continually pot them or pot them up into something that has enough room for them to grow, for their roots to grow adequately. So by potting them up into clear solo cups, I can really see the roots. So this is something I want to pay attention to, because once we planted these out, at the time of planting these out, we still had, I think, about 4 to 5 weeks until our last frost date. Right now, as I'm doing this voiceover, it is May 5th. So our last frost date is anywhere between May 21st and May 31st here in Colorado. In my experience the last 2 years, it's been closer to May 31st. We've had some very late, I think May 30th one year, snowstorms. So with my tomatoes and peppers, since they require warmer temperatures anyways, and especially pretty warm nighttime temperatures, at least into the 50s, I usually don't get a chance to put these outside until the beginning of June. So I'm going to say they've probably got 6 more weeks at this point to continue to grow inside. That's a very long time for plants to grow inside, 12 weeks, but that's kind of what we're dealing with here. That's the only option that I have if I want to have tomatoes and peppers for the summer season. Once I'm able to put them outside, they actually thrive and they do really well usually. Last year I had not a super great tomato harvest, and my peppers also were stunted a little bit, and I'm not sure if that was just because it was still pretty cool at the beginning of the summer or what happened. But this year they are already growing so large inside, and they look really good and they look really healthy, even after uppotting them. After uppotting, they go through a little period for a couple of days of shock, essentially, where they kind of look a little wilty. They don't look great. But once you water, give them enough lights and attention, they perk up. And that's exactly what happened after I uppotted these. They didn't look great for a couple of days, but now they're back to looking like their normal, beautiful selves. So I don't think that we'll have a problem with planting these out this year. My peppers especially, I'll get to those in a second with uppotting them, but they look really great as seedlings. And since I've uppotted them, and since this video, in just the last couple of weeks, they have already grown so much since they had more room to grow. So I honestly think that this might be the best pepper harvest year that I've had in the 3 years of gardening, because they look so much better than any other year of starting peppers inside. Just of note, all of my seeds this year, pretty much every single seed that I planted, was MI Gardener. I ordered higher quality, better quality seeds this year from MI Gardener. So I don't know if that's the difference. It's just that they're a better quality seed, so they've been able to grow a lot better and a lot nicer, or if it's just been the lights and the watering and just whatever attention I've paid to them. But they're doing great. I am really happy with both my tomatoes and pepper seedlings this year, and I'm really excited to plant these out. I think we're going to have a really great harvest. So here we are with all of our tomatoes uppotted. I am not going to be able to plant all of these out into my yard, so I'm probably going to have to give some away if they all thrive and do well. So we were just outside on this day planting all of these things up. It was a windy day. As you can see, these are my pepper plants. They're blowing in the wind, but it needed to be done on this day, so we just got after it. I have my pepper plants here. Go back and watch my tomato and pepper planting video if you want to see the varieties that I planted, because I planted several different varieties. I think 8 or 9 different varieties of peppers, same with tomatoes. So I'm not going to go through what all of these are here, but lots of jalapenos, lots of serranos, and several other peppers. So I like to use the Bootstrap Farmer cups for these, because previously my pepper plants don't get too large before I can plant them out. This year might be a different story because they are growing so well. Like I said, after I up-potted them, they're already several inches taller than what they are right now in this video. So you can see I'm just pulling the mesh cover off, the mesh outer coating off, before I transplant them into the cups. And if there are like 2 that have grown within one seed pod, I just kind of break them in half carefully without ruining too many of the roots and, you know, the stem, and plant them individually. So that way I'm maximizing how many plants I have, and all of the energy is going into the leaves of one plant versus 2. You really don't want to plant more than one plant together, just because it's going to require a lot more work and a lot more energy to grow both plants within one cup. It's just way too much. So I like to break them apart and plant them separately, and they've done really great with that. So we're just gonna pot up all of these. These are my 72 tray peat pellets. So there are at least 72 in here, but like I said, you can see I'm breaking these apart. So I probably had close to 85, 90 tomato plants. They didn't all grow 2 or 3. It just depended on how many seeds I planted out into the seed pod first. But I would say most of them actually did grow about 2 each. So some of them were just 1, some of them were 2. This one here is 1, so I don't have to separate anything. But I would say about 85, 90 plants. Oh, no, that actually is that one actually did grow too. So yeah, we had a lot. You'll see at the end of this, I ended up up-potting, I think it was 190 total tomato and pepper plants. So they completely filled my grow shelf when I was able to take them back inside, because of course I can't leave them outside. The temperatures are just too cool. It's way too windy. As you can see, they would not last outside if I left them all out. I do like to put them out. Yeah, I'm like trying to hold everything down with these big wind gusts. I do like to put them out a couple of weeks before I can transplant them into the garden beds or the ground, just to harden off so they can get used to all elements of the outside. They can get used to the sun exposure, wind, maybe even rain and other things. I don't typically leave them out if it's raining, but totally I can put them out there if it is raining and they can get some good watering in, and then I don't have to do that. I like to label these cups as I go too, just so I don't get confused. I didn't keep them really organized and separated once we put them back into the trays to take them inside, but that's something I'll do later. I don't really care to have them all organized into what they are right now. I have the peppers together, have the tomatoes together, but as far as like each variety, I don't have them separated out by variety necessarily. I just kind of have them sort of together in these containers or these trays. So you can see here, I look at the root system on these little seed pods. The roots definitely extend out through the mesh, like I said, so I like to take the covers off without disturbing the roots too much. And sometimes that can be difficult, but I usually don't have a problem with them continuing to grow. Here is everything up potted, all of the tomatoes, all of the peppers. Like I said, this is way more than I can plant in my garden bed, so I'm probably going to have to get rid of a few. And my plant shelf is completely full. I have some little herbs down there on the bottom that are still trying to sprout, but everything else is here. I ended up moving some of this stuff around afterwards because I ordered a plant shelf cover, and that has been absolutely amazing with keeping humidity and heat in my grow shelf, so that's helped a ton. After we up potted the tomatoes and peppers, I went ahead and tossed some of my onion seedlings out. I do not have great success with growing onions. I put these seedlings out and they didn't really last. They did not do well. So I started some onion from seed. I do this every year, but then once I put them out, they don't really continue to grow and they die. So I'm not sure why I continue to start them as seedlings. I think what you're actually supposed to do is like what I did here with the garlic, where you put it into the ground, start it as a seed, or use like onion sets. The previous fall, like the fall before the growing season, Basically the same as my garlic. Like I put my garlic out in October every year, just as a garlic clove, and then it grows into garlic bulbs. So I think that you're supposed to do the same with onion maybe, or maybe in certain environments, especially where it's chilly, so it has time to just kind of grow, remain dormant, but sort of grow during the winter season. And then by spring, it's sprouting and looking really healthy, like my garlic is. So we put these seedlings out, but they're not doing well. We ended up going through some of the space where the garlic is planted here in the front of this bed, and put some onion, just like some onion sets, I think is what they're called, out that I got from Trader Joe's, like in a bag. We ended up planting some of those as well. So we'll see how they do and if we have any onions this year. The first year I didn't have any onions. Last year I think I had maybe like 5. They were small, but they were definitely really good. So I would like to have more because I do use a lot of onion, but if not, it's not the end of the world. I can totally continue to buy onions from the store or from wherever. So we were just on a roll this day. We continued to plant out some things that needed to go ahead and be put outside. These are russet potatoes that I had in my basement, and they have sprouted, as you can see, a lot. So we're gonna plant some sprouted russet potatoes, just store-bought ones, as well as these seed potatoes that I got from Tractor Supply. We have a Yukon Gold variety, and then I think the other is like a red Norland potato variety. So we're gonna plant the russets, the Yukon Golds, and the red. We've also had these seed potatoes from Tractor Supply for a few weeks, so they've had plenty of time to sprout as well. You can see we have the cat outside in her tent. It's her favorite thing. So she's just hanging out with us on this day. So these are the red. They've sprouted really great as well. And what we're going to do is just cut in between the sprouts, the eyes, and plant them. And you're supposed to plant them sprout side up out of the ground. Eye to the sky, I think is what they say. So we're going to cut these into pieces. We're not going to plant the entire potato. It's not too really. Just to be able to yield more potatoes, if you cut them into pieces, especially if each piece has a sprout or an eye on it, you'll get a much larger harvest. So we are going to go through and cut all of these. We have these grow bags this year that we are going to grow our potatoes in. We also have a spot in the ground in one of our like flower bed areas, or like just one of our beds. Not our raised beds, but just an area in the ground. That's what we've grown potatoes in before, and that worked out really well, but we wanted to try these grow bags too. So we're just putting the rest of our potting mix with some hay for extra drainage and just moisture control. So we're doing sort of like a modified Ruth Stout method, where we do hay and dirt, potting soil, and just kind of toss the potatoes in there. I think he ends up doing 3 pieces of potato in each grow bag, and again lightly covering it with soil and then putting some hay on top, and that just helps with the aeration and the moisture and drainage and all of these things as these potatoes are growing. So we're just cutting these in basically half or into pieces, however many sprouts are on there, eyes, just so that each piece that we plant kind of has an eye or two on it. So these are the reds we're going to toss in here. And we're going to do the exact same thing with the Yukon Gold seed potatoes as well. Just cut them up and place them in the grow bags. I think we have 10 grow bags total, so I think he did like 5 and 5. I don't know if we had remaining potatoes left over, but he ended up doing the russet potatoes, the ones that I grew in the basement, like the grocery store ones. This is the area I was talking about. It's kind of like a plant bed. I don't really use it for flowers necessarily. There have been flowers in it before, but we, in this front part last year, grew the potatoes, the store-bought potatoes, and they did really, really well. So we're going to plant these here again. And just, again, cutting them into pieces so that each one has a sprout. This one actually doesn't look like it's sprouted very much. So we'll make sure that we plant the best ones for sure, and then just compost the rest. So we're just kind of digging up the soil here in this bed. It hasn't been amended or anything this season. I don't even know if we ended up adding any dirt or soil on top of this, or if we just used what was here. I'm pretty sure he just used what was already here, because this dirt and soil was still pretty good from last year. And these grow in ground, and our ground in this area is actually pretty decent. So just kind of digging a little trench. It was basically the exact same area, the exact same line as where the potatoes were planted last year. So we just dug that out all the way across, and it's probably about 6 feet long of an area to toss the potatoes in, and then just kind of tossing those in. Ideally, you're supposed to put the sprouts, like I said, up so that they can grow out of the ground. So that's kind of what we're doing here. So we did that for a front row and a back row. This is exactly what we did last year. So I think that we should have some good success with this and grow lots of potatoes both in the ground and in our potato bags, hopefully, our grow bags. Just covering it up with the dirt afterwards, covering all those potato sprouts up. And yeah, we just basically leave them. I do occasionally water this area, but otherwise it's pretty low maintenance. They kind of do their own thing. You can see here my Welsh onions are popping up like crazy. We are already harvesting these. This is our first harvest of the year. So we're always really excited to have these. And last but not least, this was actually the next day. My husband went through and just planted some carrot seeds in one of the garden beds as well, and labeled them with these little handmade wooden signs that he made. So yeah, that's a wrap on our first planting of the season. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.